There's a special kind of madness that comes with power, and in our neighborhood. Power didn't come from wealth or influence. No, in our quiet cul-de-sac, true control belonged to whoever sat at the head of the HOA board. Unfortunately for all of us, that person was Miriam Grellia, woman so obsessed with order and rules. She made the IRS look disorganized. Miriam wasn't your average nosy neighbor. She wasn't loud, confrontational, or even visible most of the time. Instead, she operated like a ghost hovering in the shadows, striking without warning. If your trash can was out 10 minutes past pickup time, you'd get a $25 fine. If your grass was a half-inch too long, boom, another notice. Your mailbox paint was chipped. That's a $50 penalty, payable to the HOA within 10 days. The strange part was, no one ever saw her issuing these citations. We'd just wake up 2 little yellow envelopes taped to our front doors or tucked into our mailboxes, each one signed by order of the HOA Compliance Committee. As far as we all knew, there was no committee, just Miriam. And she never showed up to community meetings. She claimed she was ill or traveling, yet her fines continued to appear. Stacking up like an invisible hand was squeezing the life out of our neighborhood. I tried to ignore it at first. We all did, but things escalated quickly. I got hit with a $100 fine for having overgrown shrubbery, even though I had just trimmed them that weekend. My neighbor Frank, a retired firefighter, got dinged $75 for excessively loud wind chimes. The final straw came when a single mom named Tasha down the street got fined $300 for having a pink tricycle on her front lawn for 2 days. Tasha broke down crying at our unofficial block party that weekend, saying she had to choose between paying the fine or buying groceries for her 2 daughters.
Nice.
That's when I decided enough was enough. I wasn't the type to get involved in neighborhood drama. I kept to myself, worked from home as a software developer, and enjoyed peace and quiet. But now, I couldn't stay silent. Someone had to stand up to this phantom menace. If no one else would do it, it had to be me. The plan: my name's Jason Meyer. I live in house number 18 at the bend of Cedar Ridge Lane, the last house before the woods. And for the past 2 years, I've been paying HOA fees to a woman I've only seen twice. The first step in taking her down was simple: information. I started with the HOA's official website. It was basic, poorly made, rarely updated, and filled with vague rules that could be twisted any way she wanted. But what I noticed was odd. All fine notices and decisions were listed as coming from the HOA Compliance Committee, which again did not exist, at least publicly. I checked the board members list. 3 names were listed: Miriam Greeley, president, her cousin Vincent Greeley, treasurer, and someone named Carol Lee, secretary. I'd never seen Carol at any meetings. And Vincent was a reclusive type who only left his house to water his lawn every other Tuesday. I started knocking on doors, carefully asking around about Miriam and the fines. Most people were terrified to talk, especially when I mentioned challenging the HOA. But one neighbor, Lisa, invited me in and told me something that made my blood run cold. She'd fined me last year for having a rusty garden hose, Lisa said. But when I tried to fight it, she sent me a legal warning letter saying I'd be sued for harassment if I contacted her again. That's when I realized we're not dealing with a neighbor, we're dealing with a tyrant. Is when I hatched the watch plan. If she wouldn't show her face, I'd track her from a distance. I wanted to see how she knew everything: when people left bikes out, when lawns were untrimmed, when trash cans were left out too long. There had to be a method behind her madness. So I bought a pair of high-quality binoculars, a long-lens camera, and began observing her home. The ghost house, Miriam's house, sat at the top of the hill, surrounded by thick hedges and surveillance signs. It looked more like a fortress than a suburban home. But what surprised me most was how rarely she ever left. For 3 days, I didn't see her exit once, but her blinds would shift. Her front light would flick on and off during odd hours. It was like someone was there watching, waiting. Then, late one Thursday night, I caught her. She exited through her side door wearing all black sweatpants, hoodie, sneakers. She crept down the hill toward Tasha's house and placed something in her mailbox. I quickly snapped a few photos from behind the blinds. The next morning, Tasha called me in tears. Another $250 fine for leaving a stroller partially on the sidewalk. I now had visual evidence that Miriam was the one issuing these ridiculous citations by hand, under cover of darkness. And it meant one thing. She was watching everyone, closely, like a predator stalking her prey. It was time to confront her. But I wasn't going to knock on her door and give her a chance to deny anything. I needed more. I wanted proof of her operation, how she tracked everyone, where she kept records, who she reported to, if anyone. So I did the unthinkable. I followed her home. The chase had happened the following week. I pretended to walk my dog, Bruce. Around 11:30 p.m., I had my camera slung around my neck and a GoPro hidden in my hoodie pocket. Bruce and I took the long way around the block, waiting near a tree-lined alley that connected the back of the neighborhood to her property. Sure enough, around midnight, I saw her again, this time with a flashlight and a folder under her arm. She moved quickly, like a soldier on patrol. Once she slipped into her home, I ran across the street and ducked behind the hedge. Her back window was slightly open. I could hear typing. A printer started up inside. She was filing citations at midnight. I crouched down and peeked through the gap in the blinds. My heart raced. Inside was a command center. Multiple monitors showed live footage from around the neighborhood. She had cameras installed on utility poles, trees, even camouflaged inside birdhouses. She had names, addresses, photos, and timestamps, an entire database of our lives. She was running a private surveillance operation on all of us. I snapped pictures, recorded video, and quietly slipped away into the night. I now had everything I needed, or so I thought. But then, the next morning, I woke up to something chilling. A yellow envelope taped to my door. Cease all trespassing activity or legal action will be pursued. There was no fine this time, no vague rule violation, just a direct threat. She knew, somehow. She knew I had followed her, and if she had cameras all over the neighborhood, maybe she had seen me recording her. My phone buzzed. A block number I picked up. Silence, then a raspy voice whispered, "You should have stayed out of it, Jason." The line went dead. Now, I wasn't just dealing with a nosy HOA president. I was dealing with someone far more dangerous, someone who had something to hide, and was willing to do whatever it took to protect it. And I had just made myself her number. One enemy. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced, spinning every possible scenario. What would she do now that she knew I had followed her? Was she bluffing, or had she really seen me crouched outside her house? The yellow envelope taped to my front door felt more like a death threat than a warning. And the blocked phone call who whispers something like that if they're not trying to instill fear. The next morning, I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through the video footage I had recorded the night before. Despite my nerves, I had to remind myself why I did all this in the first place. The footage was gold-clear shots of Miriam, printing citations, entering notes on residents into what looked like a home-built database, and screens showing illegal surveillance of our entire neighborhood. But the risk was now very real. Miriam Greeley wasn't just issuing petty fines in secret. She was conducting a full-scale operation that invaded people's privacy, manipulated the HOA system, and financially punished anyone who didn't live by her absurd standards, and somehow no one had ever challenged her until now. By noon, I had made multiple backups of the footage, one on a flash drive, another on a cloud account, and one burned to a DVD, just in case. I knew Miriam would retaliate. She couldn't afford to have her secret exposed. But I also knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. If I vanished or got sued into oblivion, she'd just keep on terrorizing our neighborhood. So I called a few neighbors I trusted, Frank, Tasha, and Lisa. We met quietly at my place, blinds closed, doors locked. I showed them the footage. Frank clenched his fists as he watched. Tasha covered her mouth in shock. Lisa simply said, "I knew it." Together, we formed a plan. It wasn't enough to expose her in whispers or rumors. We needed undeniable proof presented to everyone in the neighborhood publicly and officially. And we needed to hit her where it hurt most, her position of power, our First step was to call an emergency HOA board meeting. According to the bylaws, if 1/3 of the homeowners signed a petition, an emergency meeting could be held to discuss leadership issues, including a vote to remove the president. The catch? Miriam had designed those rules herself. The bar was set high, but not impossible. Over the next 3 days, we worked like an underground resistance. We went door to door, carefully explaining what was happening, but only to those we truly believed weren't loyal to her or too scared to speak up. To our surprise, people were ready, angry, exhausted. We gathered signatures faster than we expected. 33 homes out of the 90 in our development. It gave us enough power to force the meeting. Miriam tried to cancel it, claimed it violated procedural timelines, but this time we had legal backup. Frank's niece was a peril.